These words from John's 15th chapter. I'm the real vine, and my Father is the farmer. He cuts off every branch of me that doesn't bear grapes, and every branch that is grape bearing he prunes back so it will bear even more. You are already pruned back by the message I've spoken. Live in me, make your home in me, just as I do in you. In the same way that a branch can't bear grapes by itself, but only by being joined to the vine, you can't bear fruit unless you are joined with me. I'm the vine, you are the branches. When you're joined with me and I with you, the relation intimate and organic, the harvest is sure to be abundant. Separated, you can't produce a thing. Anyone who separates from me is dead, was gathered up and thrown on the bonfire. But if you make yourselves at home with me, and my words are at home with you, you can be sure that whatever you ask will be listened to and acted upon. This is how my Father shows who he is. When you produce grapes, when you mature as my disciples. We all hear stories. Sometimes the stories we hear are about families and the interesting and complicated relationships and dynamics that come whenever a group of people choose to share their life together. You already know this, but I'll remind you that no family is perfect, and every family wrestles with something, some families more than others, but every family has something they have to deal with. Even those families who appear so put together and polished on the outside have an issue that they are wrestling with. While one particular family's struggles are different from the family across the street, a universal issue that all families will wrestle with is the death of a loved one. Often it's during those times of great tragedy, such as the death of a loved one, that has a possibility for families to come together despite the struggles. And likewise, that situation also has a possibility for families to drift farther and farther apart, widening the cracks of bitterness and resentment that were already there. We all know stories of families that fight over assets and money when a parent or a spouse or a close relative has passed away. Even if there is a will, they're still arguing over who gets what. While not always put to voice, there's this notion that everything needs to be fairly divided amongst the remaining loved ones. And if someone believes they aren't getting their fair share, they'll be really vocal about it, or they'll choose to remain silent and instead harbor bitterness. Families arguing over who gets what after the death of a loved one is precisely what is happening in our scripture passage today. Today, scripture provides us with a message we know to be true, but that we often need to be reminded of time and time again. On the surface, it might seem like the scripture is about money, but in actuality, it's about one's relationship with money in the form of greed. When our scripture starts, we find ourselves observing Jesus teaching, and he has a crowd around him like he usually does. And one person in the crowd speaks up to Jesus, telling Jesus to tell his brother to divide the family inheritance with him. Now that seems fair, right? It would be logical that Jesus would agree that the family and inheritance needs to be divided. But surprisingly, that's not how Jesus responds. He says that it's not up to him to decide who gets the inheritance. Jesus teaches this man and everyone in the crowd a lesson about how the meaning and significance of life does not rely on possessions. Jesus furthers his point by telling a parable about a rich fool who has quite the predicament. The rich fool has a bountiful harvest, but that's not the problem. The problem is that he doesn't have enough space to store up all his crops. So what does this rich fool decide to do? Well, he doesn't choose to give it away. Instead, he chooses to build up bigger buildings to store the crops he has. And after building his bigger buildings and storing up his crops, this man resolves to pick up his feet and relax. He's stored up enough food for many years, so he's set, and he doesn't have to do any more work for quite a while. So he's going to enjoy the fruit of his labor, so to speak. For some of us, that's our dream come true, to store up enough to just relax. But, and it's important but, Jesus calls this man foolish. Jesus does not praise this man's entrepreneur skills or his resolve to provide for his family and for himself. Instead, he labels this man as a fool because this man is really short-sighted. He's only focused on what is tangible and what he physically needs to live life on earth. What this rich fool doesn't realize is that he's not going to be able to take his crop and his stuff with him when he dies. And if he can't take his stuff when he dies, what's the point of having it and storing it up? That's why Jesus just seems so disinterested in telling the brother to divide the inheritance. Because it doesn't really matter who gets what. You can't take whatever you have, whether it's a lot or a little. You can't take that with you when you die. True. So what's the point of storing up stuff and making sure we have our stuff? Too often our stuff makes us way too happy. It makes us feel so secure. We think the more that we have, the better we will feel. Although we know better than that, there's something in the back of our mind that says if we just had more stuff, or better versions of the stuff we already have, we feel more satisfied, we feel happier, and we be more content. There's a recent study from Princeton University that says once someone makes $75,000 a year, there's no evidence that a bigger salary will make them any happier or more content. In other words, if you make more than $75,000, the extra money you earn won't make you any happier, according to the research. Now, in the Midwest, $75,000 is a good chunk of money. If you make considerably less than $75,000, I can understand the stress that comes with wondering how you're going to pay your bills and save for retirement and your college, in your child's college, all the while praying and hoping your car doesn't break down in the next year because, well, you just don't have the money to buy a new one. And if you make significantly more than $75,000, then I can understand the stress that comes with the temptation to buy more stuff because you have more and you deserve it. And when you have more, there's a temptation to rack up bill after bill, accumulating more debt. When it comes to the fruit of the Spirit of generosity, first and foremost, we think of money. Generosity definitely includes money, but it also includes our time, our skills, and our feelings. Now, despite life circumstances, at the core of generosity is an attitude and a mindset. It's whether we choose to be generous or not is based on a decision to be other-focused. And generosity ponders the questions of how much do I really need? And what do I do with what I have left over? Being generous is something that touches every aspect of our life. Generosity is not only concerned about money, but it also asks these questions. Are we kind with our words? When faced with the chance to say thank you to someone for something they did, do we actually choose to say thank you?